Hello there and welcome to this special edition of Project Justice, reaching you from the Supreme Court here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Utuba Omoran. On this episode, we shall be taking reactions from the judgment of the Supreme Court and the PDP leadership case. We're going to look at its implication on jurisprudence and, of course, widening the political landscape and opposition politics and democracy in general. We'll be taking reactions from lawyers, politicians and other interested persons in this matter. That's after this short break. What appeared an intractable leadership crisis in the People's Democratic Party has finally received a judicial resolution. Ali Modu Sharif's claim to the national chairmanship of the party has ended. The Supreme Court on Wednesday held that his removal at the May 21, 2016 National Convention of the party held in Port Harcourt was valid. Justice Liman of the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt was the first to adjudicate on the matter. His decision was, however, reversed by the Court of Appeal, restoring the control of the party back to Sharif, and thus began the final lap to the Supreme Court. Sharif initiated what looked like a preemptive strike to technically terminate the case through a motion wherein he argued that having been given legal control of the party by the Court of Appeal, the party is not interested and did not authorize any further appeal to the Supreme Court.
If a man who had no authority to file a process did so, I don't know what justice is there in asking him to go back. That asking him to go back in itself is justice. Don't misunderstand the position of the PDP. It is not the position of the PDP that an appeal cannot be lodged against the decision of the Court of Appeal. Their position, that is the position of PDP, is that they are not interested. If any other person is interested, let him come as an interested party. There is a clear procedure for that. Whoever is aggrieved by a decision other than those involved in that case has the right, if he can establish his right, approach the court for leave to appeal. That is what we are saying.
Can he appeal without a main appeal being lodged?
No. Don't. You see, if you say you want to appeal, all you have to do is to approach the court and say, in this matter, PDP is not appealing. You don't even have to say that PDP is not appealing, that I am interested, and you show how your interest arose or has arisen. By so doing, you can be granted leave to appeal. So don't mistake don't make that mistake. It is not the position of PDP that you cannot lodge an appeal. What the PDP is saying is that having regard to the decision of the Court of Appeal, which recognized and still recognizes Ali Modu Sharif as the PDP chairman, and having regard to the provisions of the Constitution, which makes Ali Modu, provision of the Constitution, which makes Ali Modu Sharif the chairman and by extension the chief executive. He decides whether PDP will appeal. So if there was an appeal lodged in the name of PDP, he has the right to say we are not interested in it. And that is what he has done in conjunction with the secretary of PDP and the National Legal Advisor. You have a look at the constitution of PDP. What it says is that the legal matters is within the exclusive domain of the National Legal Advisor, who appeared in the court below without any objection as representing PDP. So if he has come forward again to say we are not interested in the matter, they are not interested in the matter. But whatever happens, we'll hear the decision of the court whenever it is ready.
But that objection was the first to be thrown out, paving way for the main judgment. Justice Bode Rhodes Vival, who read the unanimous decision, observed that contrary to claims and the conclusion reached by the Court of Appeal, that there was no abuse of the court process. He noted that there was no judgment restraining the PDP from holding its national convention as argued by Sharif, who had presented himself to be elected as national chairman only to call off the convention after he was disqualified.
First of all, we have to give thanks to Almighty God that at the end of the day that justice has been done. We've been vindicated. We said that we are going to pursue this matter to its logical conclusion, and so that the position of the law will be stated by the apex court. We have been vindicated to the point that the court said that the convention that was held in Port Harcourt on 21st of May 2016 was legal. There was nothing unconstitutional about it. So many people have accused us that we are the ones who brought Sharif. And we have said from time to time that yes, that as a time we took that position, we are right. And that if you have supported somebody and the person is not going according to the terms of what the party says should be done, you have a right to say, okay, since you are diverging from the policies and rules of the party, then the party will no longer go ahead with you. And today we have said that, look, what the court has done, we are very happy. It shows that we will be opposition in this country. So many people have made attempts to keep PDP so that there will be no opposition to the ruling APC government. So we're happy that Supreme Court has come up to state that, look, what happened on the 1st of May 2016 in Port Harcourt was right. And therefore, the court should be wary of so many people, politicians, who are desperate in filing several applications in order to perpetuate themselves in office. I'm very glad, I'm very happy with my people. Rivers State people are happy because we have no other party other than the People's Democratic Party. That's why we are very passionate about it. And we give God the glory that today, the end of that crisis has come. What I will urge the other people, since they have also said that at the end of the day, whatever position the Supreme Court takes, they will abide to it. I urge them to keep to their words, to be consistent, and abide to the decision of the Supreme Court. But all of us will have to work together as PDP and reposition the party ahead of 2019. That is my position.
The next big question is, how does the PDP re-strategize? You were planning for the National Convention before now. Ahmed Makarfi National Caretaker Committee was supposed to hold forth for a period of time. What happens from now on, based on the judgment delivered?
First of all, I'm aware the chairman and members of the Caretaker Committee will go back to the drawing table and, of course, map out the schedules and timetable of what's going to happen and invite the various organs of the party. I think they are going to do that as quickly as possible. It is not my position. We are waiting as governor. They will invite us, the caucus, they invite the caucus, they invite the National Working Committee, and then we'll be able to take a decision on what next to do. But at the end of the day, I know that McAfee and co. will go back immediately and then plan the timetable ahead.
When you talk of reconciliation and bringing everybody back on board, let me ask, does that include Ali Modu Sharif?
Obviously, I don't think Ali Modu Sharif had any other option. He has said that he believes in the party. He said he believes in democracy. And if that is the case, I don't see any reason why he should not be part of it. I don't think he wants to leave the party. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. He has spoken to me last week that whatever decision the Supreme Court takes, he will abide to it. So I have no fear of what is going to happen.
Your Excellency, Governor Wike, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
I see this as a victory for Nigerians, the sympathizers of this party. Democracy without an opposition is a dictatorship. We only want to congratulate Nigerians for their support and for today's judgment that has given the party the status they deserve, the platform they need to reach out to Nigerians to establish that this country must be governed by constitution and by laid down procedures. I want to assure Nigerians that now that the party will move forward in a way to consolidate better than ever before, we will stand in the position of opposition properly.
What do you do to members who were on the side of the Ali Modu Sharif in this dispute?
Well, in my opinion, it's a victory for PDP, victory for Nigerians. We can't waste time fighting anybody now because time is not on our side. We are all going to move forward. I want to encourage them to come so that we can move forward in the overall interest of this party. It's unfortunate this distraction has taken time, but it's still good. We want to plead with everybody to come on board so that we can move this party forward.
I asked your colleague, the governor of Rivers State, earlier about what plans it is to properly re-strategize the party in terms of organizing a national convention and ensuring that a proper substantive leadership is put in place. What's your take on that?
Well, it's not going to be a decision of IFISH or an individual. We are going to meet. We are going to take decision in the overall interest of the party now that the coast is clear. Like I said, everybody must come on board. We don't need any distraction now. We need to move forward. After our meeting, stakeholders meeting, we will have a position for Nigerians and the party.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Governor Fayose. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. This is a celebration of democratic values, democratic practice. For now, our focus is to rebuild our party, because we have to engage in peace and unity to bring back our loved ones, those that left before the 2015 elections, those that left when we were having our challenges, and those that they were on the other side of the divide. We need to bring everybody back to build a bigger platform, because PDP is truly and remains the only party that concentrates on national unity, accommodates all national interest, and indeed practices democracy in its true forms. So we need to rebuild this umbrella to accommodate everyone. PDP is for all Nigerians. Democracy must survive in Nigeria, must be practiced in truth and in spirit.
On whether there was a breach of the PDP constitution in the dissolution of the National Executive Committee, the Supreme Court relied on Articles 33(5), 35, 37 and Article 47 of the party's constitution to hold that the National Convention has enormous and sweeping powers, and as the highest policy-making organ of the party, can take any decision, including the dissolution of the National Executive. It faulted the appeal court for not giving a compound interpretation of the provisions of the party's constitution. Sharif was not in court, and his lawyers were unwilling to grant an interview. His deputy national chairman, Cairo Ajogbo, waved away a request for interview. On the whole, the Apex Court set aside the Court of Appeal decision and restored the judgment of Justice Suleiman of the Federal High Court. All right, SN, we've talked about the possible casualties, but let's look at some of the few minor gains. Just recently, the PDP won the Osun West senatorial rerun, a by-election. And the ticket given to the candidate, Ademola Adeleke, who won that election, was issued to him by Ali Modu Sharif. His leadership has now been declared an illegal body by the Supreme Court. What's the implication of that?
Well, I do not see any problem. Quite frankly, I do not see any problem at all, because Modu Sharif was not acting for himself. Modu Sharif was acting for and on behalf of the party at that time. And do not forget that it was in absolute obedience and compliance to the judgment of the Court of Appeal that he had to sign the nomination form of Adeleke. Now, as far as I'm concerned, again, this is also new. Both factions, both McCarthy faction and Sharif faction, were together. They were ad idem on this. And I do not see any form of complaint by any person. And if anybody should complain anyway, I believe it is the PDP. But the PDP is united on this, absolutely. And the effect of the judgment of Supreme Court is in respect of who is now in charge. As at today, it is McCarthy that is the chairman of the party. And when Modu Sharif acted, he also acted in obedience to the Court of Appeal judgment, which has now been vacated. So I do not see any problem at all. PDP has come to stay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, during the pendency of this suit and the leadership crisis facing the PDP, there have been casualties and some minor gains. Of course, the casualties, you'll be talking of several elections that have been conducted, which the PDP has lost woefully because they had a divided house. Frontline among them are the governorship elections in Edo State, as well as the Ondo governorship election. Coming up next will be a PDP candidate in the just concluded Ondo governorship election, Eitayo Jegede, who lost because his party was not united. And the court decision went against him, only to be reversed just a few days before the election, giving him not enough time to prepare for that election. We'll hear his legal perspective to the decision of the Supreme Court and, of course, the political implication of that decision as well. That's coming up next. And thank you so much.
So grateful
for joining me.
Yes, we're thankful to Supreme Court. We are vindicated. That's the summary of it. And along the line, as you have said, there have been casualties. Casualties that unfortunately had to go down because of the conspiracy of the evil forces. But then the Supreme Court of the land has already stated it, that McCarthy is in charge and our position has been vindicated. It's sacrifice that we had to make, and we made the sacrifice. We give glory to God that it went this way, and the position is very, very clear. I am sure the leadership will now take a definite position on how to move the party forward. For me, I'm back to base as a legal practitioner. I'm happy to be here, to be part of the legal team.
The next big question would be, has the PDP learned its lessons? Because a lot of people looking at it from a detached perspective would say it is still part of the lack of internal democracy that existed in the PDP that led them to this crisis. And like you said, so many casualties so far. Has it learned its lessons? Now that he's been given a second chance, more or less.
I want to believe so. I want to believe so because you should also bear in mind that there are deliberate forces that were instigated and planted to destroy the PDP. You should not lose sight of that. All said and done, I believe PDP is now here to stay and to make its mark. And I said this first as the candidate of PDP in the last election and again as a senior counsel in these proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You're still watching Project Justice. We told you the show today is dedicated to the decision of the Supreme Court this Wednesday, affirming the Ahmed Makarfi-led National Caretaker Committee of the People's Democratic Party as the true leadership of the party. Of course, you know that this case started right from the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt, went to the Court of Appeal, Port Harcourt Division, and over here at the Supreme Court, where a final decision has been reached. I'm going to take a reaction from one of the lead counsel who's been in this matter right from when it started, Mr. Dejo Lamikoro, senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
This case started from the Federal High Court, and there's been some very salient points of law, especially as it has to do with the Constitution of the People's Democratic Party and essentially the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. How do you think the decision reached by the Supreme Court today would deepen our democratic process?
In many, many ways than one, the decision handed down today has already become so profound in its effects on our democratic experience for the mere fact that it has brought certainty, it has brought clarity to what clearly was a very confusing situation. It shouldn't have taken this long, or it shouldn't have caused this much agitation for a political party to determine how it wishes to organize itself. The constitution of PDP is quite clear, and the events that took place at the National Convention in Port Harcourt on the 21st of May were rather very clear. The preceding events was exactly the opening statement of the Supreme Court this morning. The Supreme Court adopted and noted the fact that when the former acting national chairman, Senator Alimodu Sharif, purported to have cancelled that convention, the backdrop was that he vied to be chairman. He presented himself for screening the day before. He didn't succeed in the screening exercise. The reasons for his failure to scale screening were well documented and stated, and the Supreme Court read it out. It was after he failed the screening that he now purported on the very day of the convention to say, without consulting, as the Constitution requires, he says he's cancelled it. Well, the party simply went ahead to invoke the constitutional powers inherent in the Constitution of PDP to continue with the convention, ignored the purported cancellation, and the result today is that the party as a party have been vindicated in their decision to assert that this is not about an individual, this is not about strong man, this is about strong institutions. And that is what our political parties need to evolve to be. We can't really have a true democracy without strong institutions, strong party institutions who are willing to abide by their own rules and play by their own rules. And I think the judgment today has affirmed that the PDP has abided and operated according to its own rules, and they have been vindicated by those their own rules. I think that is the essential message. to take away from this judgment.
Last time I spoke with you, we discussed the narrow objection that was raised by the respondent in this case, to the effect that the PDP, as an appellant before this court, did not get authorization from then chairman and national secretary of the party, Ali Modu Sharif, and the national secretary of the party, Wale Oladipo, that the appeal filed before the Supreme Court was not proper, and subsequently they filed a motion to ask the Supreme Court to strike out the appeal filed by the PDP, that it did not get any authorization. That objection was dismissed, and that motion was also thrown out by the Supreme Court. You said you're looking forward to see how the Supreme Court itself would interpret that narrow objection that was raised.
Yes. I'm glad you raised this, because when last I spoke about this subject, I said I am looking forward to the Supreme Court giving us a guide. I also remember I said in all my years of practice, not too long, but a little bit, I have never seen a situation where a respondent in an appeal would purport to terminate an appeal that has been raised against him. And what the respondents were trying to do in purporting to have withdrawn the appeal is to say that the Court of Appeal decision is final. When the Constitution of Nigeria says a decision by the Court of Appeal is appealable to the apex court, and the only final court is the Supreme Court. So when they purported to have withdrawn and terminated the appeal filed to this court, they actually intended, as it were, to subvert the Constitution and the constitutional powers of the Supreme Court. And of course, the outcome today is gratifying. I have learned a little bit more. I've added to my store of knowledge. I'm no longer in confusion. And I'm glad that the Supreme Court has made things rather clear to us.
And so we said the Supreme Court has told the part of substantial justice instead of perhaps looking at technical issues to terminate the case, as would have been expected by the respondent.
You have put it brilliantly well. The Supreme Court simply has eschewed technicalities, and to some extent, it has put down what clearly was an absurdity. In no uncertain terms, it is absurd for a defendant to say to a plaintiff, this case you came to file, I have terminated it. Justice doesn't work that way. Justice is about ventilation of grievance, and the role of the court is to finally resolve disputes between two parties. You don't resolve dispute by seeking to truncate, by seeking to terminate, by seeking to withdraw, when there is still existing a right to appeal to the final court, which PDP had. The whole objective was to prevent the PDP from pursuing that its right of final appeal. And as you can see, that ploy collapsed spectacularly. It is the first point that I think this court took care of.
Yes. Finally, sir, let's look at these other aspects of the objections also raised to the fact that, the PDP, I think article, is it 33 or 37 now?
33.
Requires that a 20-day notice be put in place for a vote of confidence,
no confidence
on the executive before a decision is taken to remove the executive. How did the Supreme Court reach its conclusion on that?
Yeah, that is Article 47,
of
the PDP Constitution. Yes. In this case, the court resolved it on two grounds. One, that it was not a constitutionally mandatory requirement that as a matter of must, a vote of confidence or no confidence must be taken.
Is it because of the may word?
It is
in that
article? It is in one sense because of the may word, and in the other sense because of the factual content. Don't forget, the national executive, presided over by the then acting chairman, Senator Ali Modu Sharif, issued a notice of convention at which the national executives of the party consented to. And that notice says A national convention should hold in 3 months' time in Port Harcourt in May. Now, the question is this. If you agreed that a national convention should hold and that elections to national offices should also hold at that convention, you who sat to take that decision, what does it mean? It means you have agreed, though elected, that you will surrender your mandate for that fresh election to hold. You cannot be heard to later complain and say, oh, you cannot remove me unless a vote of confidence is first passed. You had already decided that vote of confidence when you issued that notice of Congress, which included the mandate for national elections to hold into elective offices of the party. So these are the two background reasons that informed, I think, the decision of the Supreme Court to not only uphold Article 47, but to also say that in these circumstances, vote of no confidence was not a strict requirement before those officers were removed.
Mr. Dejo Lamikoro, Senior Advocate, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it on Project Justice, a special edition which came to you from the Supreme Court here in the nation's capital. Be sure to follow us on the various social media platforms and watch us on YouTube as well. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Mutabo Moran. Have a beautiful evening.